Are you looking for some fun new recipes to try out this summer at your barbecue?
Well, today on WTF, we're going to show you how to make a great sticky barbecue sauce that won't drip off your ribs when you're eating them, and even a great fermented salt and vinegar potato chip. Hello and welcome to WTF, where we transform food here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen. I'm Chef Scott Guerin.
And I'm Janie Wang, one of the owners of Modernist Pantry. And here on WTF, every week we talk about unique ingredients and techniques and show you new recipes that you can do in your own kitchen. So remember, subscribe and ring the bell and you'll get notified of our content when it comes out. And this week we're going to be talking all about summer barbecues, specifically Scott's famous barbecue sauce, and also a fermented potato chip. So stick around, we're going to have a great giveaway as well. Now, Scott, for the people who really enjoy making their own barbecue sauce, what is it about this sauce that makes it special?
So usually at home you'll end up with like a really thin sauce. A lot of people make these barbecue sauces, they end up very, very thin. So when you put them on a burger, you put them on a rib, anytime you pick them up they're going to drip off. They'll get all over yourself or just spill out the back of a sandwich, something like that. So we wanted to find an ingredient that's going to help it cling to whatever it is put on. And we were able to find one, Methocellulose F50. And when we added that, we noticed it had really great cling, so when you put it on hot ribs, you could not have to worry about putting it in the oven and having it drip off and make a mess of your pan. It sticks to the outside really well. You can continue to almost like lacquer those ribs with your barbecue sauce. And even on a hot sandwich, it held on really well. And it's so simple to do.
Yeah, I think that sounds great, especially if someone prefers a thin sauce, but they don't want to have that drip. All right, and how do you incorporate it? I see you already have a bowl of sauce mixed up.
So
how do you incorporate it?
Yeah, so we can actually go right into the demo. It's very simple. This is our base sauce, and it is a little thick here. So we have tomatoes, we have caramelized onions, we have fermented black beans, different types of spices. You can find the entire recipe in the links in the description below, as well as we're going to have a full video of making this sauce.
Cool.
Coming on this channel and our Instagram later this week. So I'm going to put this in here, and it's very simple. I'll explain what the methylcellulose does when I add it and how I added it.
Yeah.
So
for anyone who has never heard of the word methylcellulose and is wondering what Scott's talking about, so at the end we're going to have some links to other videos, and you can catch our methylcellulose primer right there to learn all about the different types of methylcellulose. Yeah.
So I took the water that was going to be added to this recipe at the end, because this is very thick, and I added in some methylcellulose. And the amount of methylcellulose I added is about 0.5% or 0.5% of the total weight of this recipe.
Okay.
So I'm going to blend this up, and then I'm going to add in the methylcellulose and water. And what I did is I took the methylcellulose and water, and I did it last night, and I blended it together. And when you do that, so I usually do ice water with it, it makes it blend in really easily. Okay. It gets a lot of air bubbles. And if I were to add that directly into this, this would become a very orange sauce, almost like as if it had mayonnaise added to it. Like it's very, very light. So that's why I just wanted to let it sit overnight so it gets nice and clear like this. And you can just see it's like a slightly viscous liquid. So I'm just going to blend this up. Throw a top on just for safety's sake. And this is, like I said, a thick sauce, but there is an amount of water that I added to it, so it's a little less intense. And that's what I use for this.
Okay. Good thing you put that lid on.
Yeah. Now it's all over my hand. Great. So just get that going a little bit. I do like a little bit of texture to my barbecue sauce to make sure that there's no giant chunks of anything. Okay. Here you can see the seeds and whatnot in there. You can always blend this to your liking. So right now I'm just going to add in the methylcellulose, and you can see it's a viscous liquid.
And you can kind of see how it's clinging to the bowl as well.
Yeah, so a brief description of kind of what methylcellulose does. When I add this, you're not going to notice much of a difference. You may just slightly thicken it, but it's already been hydrated. But when I add this to the outside of something hot, Methylcellulose works in a way that as it's heated, it gels, and as it cools, it returns to a liquid. So it's the opposite of, something like a gelatin. So that's why it works really well. If I could paint it on these ribs. These ribs came out of the oven just before we started shooting. So I'm going to paint it on the outside. You can see it kind of set on the outside. I could then place it back into the oven, or I could put it onto a grill, and it's not going to drip off, flame up, and do all those types of things.
Right.
So then I can take them off and keep brushing it. So let me just mix this in, and I'm just going to mix it in until this is mixed. There we go. Welcome to...
That's kind of fun. All right, so when you did that, and I know probably people at home, they have their favorite recipe. They're like, oh, maybe I can incorporate this in, and perhaps they've already watched a Methylcellulose primer. Is there a reason why we chose the F50 versus all the other types of Methylcellulose we have?
That's actually a great question. So I'm going to give this just so you guys can see it. Right. So the Methocellulose F50 is a very low gelling methylcellulose. If I were to use something, let's just say A15C, right? So A15C is going to be much more viscous. This probably wouldn't even have been able to blend. And then when I painted on the outside, it probably would have solidified in a way that it almost clumped up, right? It would pull itself away. This is so mild that it's able to set in a nice gel over the top. Okay? And if this was warm, so if you took this off the oven, placed it into the blender, and blended it up, it would gel the methylcellulose, even the F50 if I put it in. So I had to cool this all the way down. That's a good tip.
It is a good tip.
So here it is. If it's completely blended, you could always pass it through like a strainer if you wanted to. I prefer not to. And then when you paint it on the outside, you can see it sticks really well. It's not dripping off. And then if you want to look to the left, your left,
Yes.
your left, you can see how well it's glazed on the outside of those ribs.
Yes, that looks delicious.
Right. Perfect. So that's that. And if you want to try one of those ribs, Janie, I can get into the next.
Yes, okay.
So pull that one right off the top.
Cool.
Make a mess of yourself.
I will. Nobody gave me a napkin, but that's okay. That's okay. All right. So while I'm eating this, let's talk about the potato chips. I know they're, most people just fry them up, but you did something different here. What did we do? Okay,
so most home fried potato chips turn into these brown potato chips. And the reason why that is that there's a lot of starch inside potato chips or inside of potatoes. So if you're able to like slice them at home and then, you can rinse them all you want. A lot of that starch, especially if you left them in the refrigerator, like if you put your potatoes in the refrigerator, that starch converts to sugar really easily, and that sugar burns. So you're left with these really brown potato chips. So it's very hard to get kind of like a nice bag quality potato chip at home without having them be brown. Also, when I do these, I add a little bit of amylase, which helps speed up the process. I add amylase to the potatoes, breaks down that starch into sugar, and then I allow them to naturally ferment. We use this nice Kraut Source Lid, so I can have them ferment in the brine, so they're already salty. While they ferment, they get a little bit acidic, right? So you get a really good flavor profile overall. And then when you fry them, they are nice and like pale in a good way, so that they're not getting extremely brown. And they almost puff up like a chicharron or something like that. So they're really great. And they're easy to make. Brine? So this brine is just salt, water, garlic, and oregano.
And the amylase is in here as well?
And yeah, I add amylase in. It doesn't, the salt and everything doesn't affect the amylase. It just helps speed up the process. But you take them out, you dry them off, and you fry them. They're unbelievably crispy. They're nice and pale in a good way. And then we added a little bit of malt vinegar powder mixed with N-Zorbit M. Now, N-Zorbit M helps stick to the outside, similar to how you see on, a bagged potato chip, like a commercial store-bought potato chip. And the malt vinegar powder kind of just accentuates those flavors, mixes in with the salt that's naturally in the brine, so you have your own kind of homemade, really great, really natural tasting salt and vinegar chip.
Cool. I'm going to eat one. And what's this right here?
So this is the Kraut Source Lid. Basically, it's an airlock. So you put this on the top of any mason jar, and you're able to ferment within the mason jar. So this right here is a well, and you fill it with water. So any gases come out from here, they pass through the water, and it doesn't allow anything to come back into the jar. Now, if you're doing pickles and whatnot, they also have this plunger so you can kind of squish it all down so nothing's exposed. But we didn't have to worry about that with the potatoes. The potatoes are, they don't float very well.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, we love these. We use them for pretty much
Yeah.
all of our fermentation now. And the chips are really good. I love that they have the texture of a kettle chip, but yeah, like none of that brownness and that kind of like, I don't want to say like slightly burned flavor.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's really, really nice. I love these chips. They are super good. So when you put them in the fermentation jar, how long do they ferment for?
So that depends on you. If
Okay.
you like them very acidic, you can, if they want them to have like a really kind of deep, like lacto fermented flavor, you can let them go for a week, 2 weeks.
Okay.
They can sit on your counter. You don't have to worry about putting them in the refrigerator. If you get them to a point, I like to take one out each day, fry it, taste it. Okay, it's not as acidic as I want it. Then I just let it go for another day. When you get to a point where you like it, you can then take them and put them in the refrigerator. Just put a normal like mason jar lid on them, put them in the refrigerator, and they'll like slow their fermentation down, and then you can take them and fry them. If you're doing this in a restaurant setting, you could literally do this with a 5-gallon bucket, every single day, and then use them as you go throughout the week. They're really easy to do, and you're not going to get those nasty brown burn tasting potato chips that you mentioned.
Yeah, and when you take them out of the brine, do you let them dry first before, like
Yep.
how long
Yeah, I
is
basically
that?
strain them out.
Okay.
So I take them out, I save the brine because then you can add it to the next brine and really kind of
Okay.
speed up the process.
Yep.
So I strain them out, I just pat them dry on a little bit of paper towels because you don't want to be adding a ton of water to hot oil, and then I just place them in the fryer and they're ready to go. It's extremely simple.
That sounds great. Well, hopefully this episode has got your mouth watering for some summertime barbecue recipes. If you do want to try these recipes, links will be in the description below. And if you're like, but I don't have any of this stuff, luckily you can, of course, buy them at modernistpantry.com, and you can also enter to win a set over by leaving in the comments below something that you love to barbecue or have as a summertime backyard food. And what you're going to win is you're going to win one of these Kraut Source fermentation lids, as well as 50 grams each of the malt vinegar powder and the F50. So it's a really nice starter kit for you to try this stuff out. So remember, leave in the comments below something that you like to barbecue in the summer. All right, so I think that about wraps it up for us.
Wraps it up.
Okay, well, awesome. So as I mentioned before, if you want to learn more about methylcellulose or vinegar powders, we're going to link somewhere on the screen our episodes that we did previously on those two topics, because it's a lot and we couldn't cover everything today. That would be impossible. So definitely go dive into those in order to learn more on those topics. So from here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen, I'm Janie Wang.
And I'm Scott Guerin.